Yeah, what's up guys? I'm RyGo.
I'm Jack.
And today we're gonna do a rider profile and get to know Jack and what he's all about. So,
Epic.
Let's get into it. So, yeah, man, you've been actually riding for a while now. You're a pretty young rider. Like, what are you, 21 years old?
21, yep.
21, you've been at it for a few years. You're from Squamish. I guess, could you tell us some of your backstory? Like, how did you get involved in kiting and how did you end up on Airush?
Totally. Yeah, so I started kiteboarding when I was maybe 16, 15, 16. And before that, I was sailing really competitively. That was my thing. I was traveling for racing little dinghies, if you know, they're called Optimists. They're kind of like bathtubs. But one day I was sailing in Squamish and I saw some kiteboarders, and that was pretty much the end of my sailing career. Just looked way more fun.
Nice. And then, what, like, did you just like, what's the story there? Do you just like went and picked up some gear? Did you start teaching for a school? Were your parents kind of helping you there? How'd that come about? Yeah,
I got a trainer kite and I flew that for like the entire winter until the next season started. And then I was super into it. My dad and I got lessons together, so that was how we both learned at the same time. And then from that point, we shared a quiver and just kept kind of building from that, riding as much as I could.
Yeah, man, so like living in Squamish, pretty epic spot. I've heard it's like Hood River, but 10 times better. Smooth wind, just like amazing conditions. Living there, did that have any influence on the kind of riding that you do? Because you're pretty high level rider that we don't see too often like in the industry these days.
Yeah, growing up in Squamish, the thing to do is freestyle. We've got perfect steady 20 knots every day in flat water, so there's no other option really. And all the riders that were in the freestyle game when I got into it, they were there riding and encouraging me to try the same. So I think I put boots on my board after I could do my first back roll. Not that that's necessarily the right step, but to me that was just the direction of kiteboarding. You figure out the basics, you get your boots on, you start unhooking. And I loved it. That's the discipline that really gets me excited. I feel like that's where I can be creative and try new things, and it just gets me excited to be on the water.
And I guess kind of interesting too, I think it's kind of cool that being such a young rider, you've gone in your own direction, and what I might consider a harder direction these days, since like a lot of guys your age and girls are kind of moving towards like the big air, the old school tricks, and a lot of things that are a little just more trending at the moment. And you're kind of choosing, I guess, the harder discipline, going a little against the grain. What's the thought process behind that? Is there no appeal to like the big air and all that, or are you doing loops and doing things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely try to keep my riding a little more well-rounded, so I do, when it's windy, go out and do some loops and keep that stuff like up to par and try and keep up with the riders. But I just find myself more excited to do freestyle, and I think it's something that's a little more technical. That's more my style, is like the fast spinning, thinking about the rotations and stuff. And I think it also comes from around the conditions that you grow up in. So a lot of people are going up here in Hood River and they have the opportunity to do a bunch of big air. But for me, there's only maybe 5 days a season where that's realistic. So it just makes sense to focus on what you have access to, right?
I think that's actually a really good point, and maybe like a lesson we can extract from the video as well, is riding for conditions, and we've talked about that in a lot of videos on this channel. Totally. If it's lit 25 knots and up, you're probably going to want to do kite loops in big air and get into that. But if you've got like what I think is the most underrated winds, if you've got that 15 to 21, maybe like 23, something like that, and it's reasonably smooth and you have access to flat water, freestyle is like a really underrated discipline these days that is like so engaging, like so mind-bendingly fun, like if you get into it. And I think a lot of people find it kind of inaccessible, but it's more a mindset, I would say, than a reality. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, if you're out in the right conditions, I don't think it's that hard. It's the same as big air. If you go to try to do big air in 40 knots or 20 where it's not right and you're either getting destroyed or not getting caught by your kite, it's gonna feel really difficult. But if you try freestyle in that, I'd say like 18 knots on a bigger kite, it's gonna be a nice, slow, easy progression, and lets you get into it without all the crazy edges.
Absolutely. Next question, you want to just give me a quick run through on your gear, why you're using it, and why do you like it?
Sure. Yeah, so just got the 147 of this live wire, and I'm absolutely blown away. It's pretty exciting to have a production board in such a big size for the park riding. So I ride this board in a 140 or a 142 for freestyle, and then a 147 when I'm in the park, just to have more tip and tail. Yeah. So this is the regular live wire, not the live wire team. And the reason why I choose this board is because of the grind base. So the base here, as you can see from riding the park, has taken a bit of a beating, but it doesn't affect it at all, and it's super bomb proof. That also comes in handy at home because the spot we ride is all rocks. So even if you're doing freestyle, obviously you gain a bit of weight from that grind base, but your board just lasts a million times longer. So
that's a really good point. I've always enjoyed boards with grind base for that same reason. I get my hands on a lot of demos and I'll be at a beach, even a sandy beach, and I always find that one shell, that one rock, and then there's a giant gash in the bottom of my board that's not meant to have it. So a board that's made to take a beating is always really nice if that's you.
Exactly. Yeah. Now I've been stoked on this one, riding it here in the park and just riding up the rocks when you're waiting and stuff. And sometimes you feel those little diggers from the rock and you wonder what was gonna happen and can't even see where it happened. So they've definitely done a good job with that. And there's a new channeling.
I see that.
Yeah, it's something that DK, the board designer, has worked on for freestyle. But what's really cool about it to me is that it's a freestyle setup that doesn't interfere with the park riding. Because it doesn't have any super aggressive channels. I found the landing super soft with it. And then it doesn't have any significant corners that get caught on the rails or anything that makes it less durable on the park as well. So super nice all-around board for both of those disciplines.
That's awesome. I love the point that you mentioned too with sizing, because there's a couple of camps that are merging in kiteboarding with board size, and a lot of guys are really pushing for like 150s in big boards. And I've had a similar experience for freestyle. I still like to, for me in my weight, I do a 144 usually, 142 for freestyle. But for park, 147 is great.
Honestly, almost the bigger the better for the park.
Yeah, it really helps to have the nose and the tail.
Yeah, I think people don't really understand that can be so beneficial, especially with the big air trend right now, where people are going to small boards to really hold their edge in strong wind. I think I'd really encourage people to try a bigger board for their freestyle or even free ride setups.
Even free ride, the landings are incredible. You don't ever fall because you're just landing on a giant soft plank. Yeah,
saves your knees, makes the landings feel better. It's just more stylish. Yeah, I can't say enough about how stoked I am on the big boards.
Big boards make a big difference, and that's all perspective. So maybe for you big air riders who love your 135, your 138, try 144. You might really like it for big air just because the landings are so good.
Yeah.
So what about your kite? What are you using?
I'm using the Reider. That's definitely my go-to kite. Obviously, like you said, riding for conditions. I'm not going to take the Reider out to go foiling. And if I'm going to do some big air and strong wind, I'll take out the Union. But for the majority of my sessions, when it's in that 15 to 25 knot range there, I'll be on like an 11 or a 13 with the Reider.
Yeah, pretty specific kite, but it's one of those things where you're using the right tool for what you're doing, and you're a high-level rider. You want the best tool for the job.
Yeah, if you're gonna go out and do park riding or freestyle, you just can't beat the Reider for the slack and the just locked-in feeling of it.
Yep, absolutely. So I guess some notes for like some of you freestyle riders out there who we usually engage with in the comment section. I've talked to some of you on the phones. You know, we've got like the Union, which is a really good bridled kind of like C hybrid version that people gravitate towards, but if you want the highest level, you really can't beat the Reider.
Totally.
And then for big air, I mean Union, for myself, I've actually been using the Session, which wave kite, but you know, not the loftiest kite, but it's fun. I enjoy it when it's 25 up. So
yeah, I'm currently in that funny spot because when you're traveling, you only have so much space in your bag, right? So I still do 11, 13, 15 Reider. You just can't go without those setups.
Money.
But for the 9, I actually just switched to a Union.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just found it really cool to have a kite that you can do your freestyle on, but still be really good for that big air aspect.
Totally, yep. The crossover kites they're kind of fun, they're kind of special. I was using them for many, many years, and I think a lot of people still like them. So.
Yeah. I'm curious how that session would be for that filling in the 9 gap though. 'Cause that'd be pretty fun for foiling, surf. You can still
that was my
unhook on
mindset.
it. Yeah. Big air. That might be really
I
interesting.
mean, it's not the loftiest kite, but everything else, it's like 9 out of 10. It's like
totally.
It's like super good for loops, surprisingly.
Yeah, I was blown away actually. Even though it's not meant to be an unhooking kite, you can still do it, and it's really fun. We were doing mobs on it and stuff.
That's awesome.
Getting slack. It's like,
I did a little bit in Florida this winter on the 7-meter session when it was just like these crazy nuking days, and I was like, all right, let's just see if we can unhook on this thing. And it wasn't, despite the fact that it was like 35 knots and just stupid, it worked. It worked fine, actually. I was like, oh, I've never done this before on this wind speed. Cool.
Kind of cool, yeah.
Kind of cool, yeah.
Sick.
Well, awesome, man. I appreciate the time.
Yeah,
so,
cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed getting to know Jack here. If you have any questions on his quiver or what he's about, let us know in the comments. We'll get back to you. If you found the video helpful, thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. We'll catch you next time.